Hey, welcome everybody. It's Ted Bedromo, and this is take two with Mike McMahon. We did a LinkedIn Live last week, and it was amazing the response I got. I got a lot of people emailing me and sending me LinkedIn messages about it.
That's
Unfortunately, we
cool.
had some audio problems, so we're doing take two. So welcome back, Mike.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Yeah, the audio was horrible last week. Uh, Hopefully, we
Sometimes it
don't have those
sounds horrible,
problems.
but then when you watch the actual live stream, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the case this time.
Yep. So we're talking about should you raise your prices during a recession? Then you get into the debate: are we in a recession, or technically, maybe who knows? But there's times where the economy dips, like we're in a dip right now, and a lot of people are raising their prices. And most people are sitting on the sidelines from what I'm seeing. They're kind of just pulling back and weathering the storm. So let's jump back into it, Mike.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I think pulling back and weathering a storm is literally the worst thing you could do. Even if you're not going to raise your prices, this is the time to aggressively go after more market share. I do believe that you should raise your prices. I think it's a differentiator. I think people are predisposed to associate higher price with higher value. And we could debate. I don't know if you'd have enough time. We might run out of video if we just kept talking about what the difference is. But because it's obviously a debate. But if you're solving a problem that has real value, then you should charge what it's worth. And if you undercharge, if you set your price, because I see a lot of coaches and consultants and businesses in general, they set their pricing based on what they see going on in the marketplace.
Right.
If you're doing that, you're actually at some level competing on price. And if you're competing on price, you're a commodity. And commodities, it's a zero-sum game. Whoever has the lowest price wins. And that's really tough to make a living that way.
Yeah, it
So
is. Small profit margins, that's for sure.
yeah, the easiest thing you can do, and I've done this every business I've ever gone into. This is back when I was, running companies, running sales teams, COO, that kind of stuff. And then when I shifted into consulting, I've always raised prices, always, everywhere. There's never been a place I didn't raise prices. Now, you obviously can't do that if you don't provide significant value, but as long as you do, it's the fastest way to increase your profit margin.
Yeah.
So, and
And if
those
you're like
matter.
sitting on the sidelines right now, weathering the storm, you're running your business from a place of fear.
Yes.
That's never a good thing. I just remember like 2008, a lot of my clients literally went out of business or just stopped spending money. And they
Sure.
eventually went out of business because they were in fear.
Yeah, and a lot of people pull back on their advertising. If you're currently advertising to bring in clients, the worst thing you can't save money
Mhm.
not advertising. It doesn't actually work that way.
Right.
You might need to be more creative. You may need to figure out a different audience. You might need to solve better problems. But the worst thing you can do is stop your client attraction process.
Yeah. Yeah. You lose all momentum in your business.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on what you're doing in business. I mean, if you I like to validate with social, leads, I call it inbound social. I'm much more interested in proving that a process is going to work organically
Right.
before I start throwing money at it. Because if you can't convert a client organically, it's going to be a disaster when you start spending money.
Right.
So that comes down to understanding how to position yourself and make sure that you're seen as the go-to expert in your industry. And I think a lot of people really fail to do that. And it could just be that, we're kind of, we have this wiring from when we were kids, about not bragging on yourself, not standing, you want to sit down, be seen, not heard, all these things that kind of conflict in our minds. But the truth is we have to understand who we are in the marketplace and who needs our solution. And, we need to promote. And that requires getting out there. You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Even if you're not aggressively marketing and just do brand marketing now, get your name in front of people. So when things do turn around, they
Yeah.
recognize you.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is hide. And we saw this at the beginning of COVID, right? I think that, there was let's face it, it was scary. There was a lot of things going on. Nobody knew what tomorrow was going to bring. And a lot of people really pulled in and they tried to hibernate. And a lot of those aren't in business anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know businesses that, were giant organizations that just aren't even in business anymore at all, especially in the restaurant world. Having said that, though, that was actually when I doubled down. I actually doubled my prices at the beginning of COVID. We weren't even 2 months into the process, and I just doubled my prices. And prior to that, I had actually doubled my availability because so I do consulting arrangements. Once upon a time, I used to do year-long retainers. Not that I don't have clients on retainer, I do, but that's not what I sell. That's not what I market. I find a big problem that my clients need solved, and I solve it for them. And then if we like working together, they got so much tremendous value out of that. If we like working together, then we go on a type of retainer and we look at the projects that are going to make sense. And I think that that's an easier thing to do. I know it's easier to sell because I'm selling a solution. I've solved a particular problem. It's really easy to articulate. It has a lot of value. And, quite frankly, it doesn't take that long. A lot of times these are things I can do in like 6 weeks or less. Sometimes they take a little bit longer depending on the problem. But that's so much easier because, people don't buy coaching. They don't buy consulting. Yep. They buy solutions, yep. And I see most people, they beginning of COVID, they kind of hunkered down, tried to hold on to the clients they had. Those clients were hunkering down. So, pretty soon somebody went from having a decently full practice to, half their clients are gone. And now they were afraid to spend money to market, and they just assumed nobody had money. And it was messy, so.
I've been working with a lot of clients lately, and we're kind of looking at what were you selling in 2019? And they're still trying to sell that, but there's not a need for that. There's a whole nother set of problems you could be solving for people, and they would gladly pay you to solve that problem in 6 weeks, like you said.
Yeah, be a problem solver. I tell my clients and students from other programs I have, look, if you want to make more money, if you want to be paid more, be more, solve better problems. If the problem you're solving isn't worth $25,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is you want to get paid for that, 4, 6, 8, 12-week period, I wouldn't go beyond 12 weeks, then find a better problem because they're out there.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of people when we're doing your marketing, your USP and all that. What's the biggest problem your clients have right now that you could solve? Like if you tried to solve their biggest problem, you're probably going to fail because it's probably a massive problem they've been fighting for years. So like you said, pick a small problem you can make a big, quick win and then go from there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We took the whole idea of stranger to client because, if you think about it, that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to take somebody that doesn't know who you are and get them to be a client. We broke it down into 9 separate identifiable steps, that have to be done. You could make the argument that there's more steps, but inside each of these steps is sub-steps, right? So it's not simple, but it's not hard, right? If you do these steps, if you follow this roadmap, you will have clients, and you'll have clients that are prepared to pay you what you're worth. And it does come down to positioning. It comes down to understanding the problem you solve. A lot of people get hung up on niche. I'm not saying that there isn't value in niche, but my business partner and I, we niche differently. We niche based on the problem you solve, right? Because that's easier. Actually, it's a lot easier. I don't have to worry about whether I'm working with plumbers or HVAC or real estate agents. What's the problem I solve for them? And it's helping them get clients. And so good grief, everybody wants more clients. So it's a big audience, but I can be very specific. Now, don't get me wrong. I have individual avatars for every single step. You need to, when you market, you have to market to somebody, because if you're trying to market to everybody, as the saying goes, you're not marketing to anybody.
Right.
But I think a lot of people miss those fundamental steps. And it's really the fundamentals. It's kind of like a Vince Lombardi thing. If you like football, everybody knows Vince Lombardi. He started every season the exact same way. Gentlemen, this is a football. It's a tremendous speech. But it was always about the fundamentals, because that's what wins games. And, I'm here in San Diego, so I wasn't used to football teams winning games here anyway. So, so I think they need. Well, now somebody else can share in the misery. They have a unique ability to snatch defeat right out of the jaws of victory. So I don't think moving will change that.
That's been going on for like 30 years.
It's the ownership, as far as I'm concerned, because it always starts at the top. But But yeah, it's the fundamentals matter. And if you get those right, then everything else falls into place.
I'm working on an article now. I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse because you talk about who's your ideal customer, who do you want to work with, and you
Right.
describe the demographics and psychographics of this person. Then you say, here are the problems I solve. And then you try to put that in front of that person, and like maybe they
Yeah.
don't have that problem.
Right. No, and that's the whole thing. I mean, so we started out talking about, do you raise your prices in a recession? My answer is yes, if your value is there. But there's always an audience at every price point. When years ago I created a product, a program called Sales Mastery for coaches, and literally thousands of coaches have been through it, business coaches mostly. But one of the things I wanted to do to illustrate the point about price was I went looking for just crazy things, and I found like the most expensive dessert. All right. At the time, it was a $7,000 dessert. Okay. Now it was some prince from Saudi Arabia that bought it, but it was chocolate with edible gold, and it was on this shoe that was edible. I mean, it was just this. I mean, it was really pretty cool looking, but a $7,000 dessert. There's an audience. There's somebody that'll pay for everything.
Right. Well, Perry Marshall says that with the $3,000 espresso machine at Starbucks. Most people come in and buy a cup of coffee or a latte, but they sell a $3,000 latte machine that some people buy.
Some people buy it. That's right. So it's not always, there is always, if you're solving the right problems, there's always an audience at the right price.
Right.
And, and I mean, because even if you look at coaching or consulting or masterminds, years ago, I took a coaching company from 0 to 7 million annually in 6 months. Right. And one of the things we had was a very high end mastermind. Well, the first time we sold this mastermind, it was really at our client's request. We didn't even at that stage of the game, we were just at about 400 clients, and we had a live event, and we had about 100 people at the live event. And so there were a lot of people asking, are you going to do a mastermind? You're going to do a mastermind. And so, this was with John Assaraf. A lot of people know him from The Secret. And so the decision was made. The executives, we got together, we decided, yeah, let's do one. So offered it at $12,500, and it was a 6-month mastermind, 1 call a week. And, and this was long enough ago that 12.5 was a really big ask. At least we thought it was, right? And so the scarcity was obviously time. We were only going to do one group of 9 to 12 people. And that was only if enough people were interested, because we had no idea if anybody even was going to even pay. It just literally had not planned on making this offer.
Right.
So John gets up and he just tells people very nonchalantly, people have been asking about this, so we decided we'd make it available. Here's the deal. Here's how it'll work. This is the price. If you want it, let me know. Well, we had 12 people sign up immediately, with 12 more waiting. Right. And so we made this really difficult management decision, and we decided to open up a second group. So 2 groups of 12, 12.5, just like that. Well, what that told us is we had undervalued it.
Yeah.
So the next time we did it at $25,000. Exact same scenario, 2 groups, full. You know what we did after that? We made it $100,000. And guess what? So we didn't fill 2 groups. We filled a group, 12 entrepreneurs, $100,000 in a mastermind.
Wow.
And that's not, if you shop around, you find that there are still masterminds that are $100,000 a year. That's not even an uncommon thing. I mean, Dan Kennedy's had one for a long time. Perry Marshall, I don't know if Perry still does his. I think he had one at one point.
He has some different name for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all similar, but
private clients or something.
We're actually talking about group coaching, if you think about it. You know, I mean, it's not one-on-one, but and like John brought me back to NeuroGym to build his sales team again. And he was in a program with Perry Belcher and Ryan Dice, and I can't think of the name, but it was $100,000 a year. I mean, so they're just not uncommon. But a lot of people, if you're not exposed to that, if that's not how you're investing, then you have this idea that, well, nobody pays that. But a lot of people pay that.
If you provide the value, they'll gladly pay you.
Absolutely. And the thing is that it's often about time. A lot of times, we package up our offer in a manner that makes it less attractive
Yeah.
People that are more affluent, they've got good cash flow coming in. They want to solve problems.
Yeah.
They want shortcuts. That's what they're looking for. How can you get me the solution right now?
Yeah.
So
just
something to think about.
I've seen people create these incredible proposals that are 10 pages long, incredible detail. And when I worked for IBM, we'd go in with the one sheet. And here's what we're going to do for you. And it's like $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
There's one page. I was like,
if you can't, if it's more complicated than that, then it shouldn't be there. And I'm a handshake kind of person anyway. So one of the companies I was running, we sold practice management software to law firms, and the owner was an attorney, and they'd been around for 30 years. And their agreement, unlike the competitors have these multi-page 5, 7, 8-page agreements with the tiny print and legalese, and because they're selling to attorneys. And he was like, I'm an attorney, they're attorneys. If they don't want to pay, they're going to figure a way to get out of it. So we had a simple one pager that was just plain English. And quite frankly, he was just a stand-up guy. If somebody didn't like the program, he didn't care if they'd had it for 3 years. And if they complained, they'd just give them their money back and say, have a good day.
Right.
It's just a smart way to run business.
Yeah. It's like if you have your little a la carte menu too, you hand people, here are the things I can do for you. It's like, you're leaving so much off the table.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You're putting yourself in a little box off to the side. Like, okay, that's all you can do. Next time I need that, I'll call you.
Pricing and packaging are just critical. And I think that's an easy area to make a mistake. It just takes time, just takes practice. But more often than not, you can charge a lot more than you think you can. The first $50,000 consulting client I had was because that was what came out of my mouth almost by accident. So Dan Kennedy has this great saying, right? That the hardest part about getting the high fee is being able to ask for it with a straight face.
Right.
True. So yeah, that $50,000 client was going to be a $10,000 client. And just as I was about to speak, by the grace of God, I said 50,000 instead of 10. And then I was smart enough to shut my mouth, even though I was surprised by what came out of my mouth. Fortunately, it was a phone call, so they couldn't see my face, because I know I look like a deer in the headlights. Because I was like, I had just told my wife literally 10 minutes before that call, I was going to ask for 10 grand. But as I was just going through the value of what the deal was to try to get the 10 grand, I was talking about what it was going to mean for their business. And it was considerable. I mean, it was over $1 million value. It was like 1.3 million. We both agreed made sense. Well, in my head, I was like, well, I can't ask for 10 grand for that kind of value. That's just dumb. Right. And so I said 50. So who knows what would have happened if I'd have said 100, probably might not have gotten the gig, but I did get the $50,000 gig. I was like, yes.
That's a good point you brought up. Kind of made me think, like, we used to do everything over the phone, so we didn't see each other, but now 99% of the time we're on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So you can see their expressions and see if you're going down the right path, and vice versa.
It's really important. I made over 12,000 sales in my sales career, and the vast majority of them, probably 85 to 90% of them, were over the phone. So I really learned how to listen, and it's critical. You need to hear what people aren't saying just as much as what they are saying. But you're right, with Zoom, you can see it. Right. And for me, it's actually worse, because I made so many calls just listening. If I'm on a call with somebody and they're not paying attention and they're looking around,
right,
I'll stop.
Or it's like, I'm over here typing. You're talking.
Yeah, exactly. I just stop. I just wait for silence, and then they come back, and, and then I'll begin. Because if you can't maintain their attention, well, you're obviously in trouble anyway.
So how do you feel about deals where they say, how about if I pay you a fee and a percentage of the profits that you generate in this campaign?
I have zero. I really don't have any problem working on a contingency. The challenge is the person you're doing this with, right? So I'm perfectly comfortable with what I can deliver and the results I can deliver. What I don't know is what they'll do.
Right.
And in the sales mastery training that I had created, one of the things I said, because it's prevalent, in the business coaching world, especially, to take a small retainer and then try to get 10% of the gross profits. And that's fine. That's fine. But I say that good people do stupid things for dumb reasons. And maybe that's not politically correct, but who cares? It's true. And so in my experience, especially if you're doing like 90-day, quarterly payouts, which I would never recommend. When that payout starts getting 30, 40, $50,000, and if you're doing your job right, it easily could. It doesn't take very long for that owner sitting there thinking, man, look at how much money I'm paying that person.
Right.
And there is a small percentage of people that won't look at that and have a problem. Over time, they will want to get out of that agreement.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a big fan of contingency. I'd rather just price the solution to where I'm really thrilled to give my 110% and be paid and just be done with it and let them keep their money.
Right.
So that's me.
No, that makes perfect sense. And also, they could be fudging the numbers, or you don't agree on what the gross was or the net.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, if you're going to do it off the gross, period. That's a lot harder to fudge. But you have this deal where you got to have access to their books, or they're going to submit a P&L to you, and I don't want to put them in a position to feel like that I'm the IRS, because I don't know. I'm sure everybody's completely honest when they file their taxes.
Right.
But the most honest person on the planet is, has this dilemma as they file, well, is this a deduction or isn't it? And so why would you put your clients into that?
Yeah.
But if you are going to do it off of gross. And I would suggest monthly reconciliation at the minimum, so that you keep the 10% payment or 5% or 3% or whatever you're getting off of the gross to a more manageable number.
How do you feel when people use the dollar per hour? Like they say, how much do you charge for this engagement? Well, I charge $400 an hour.
Yeah, I don't have an hourly rate.
They're like, huh? That's a lot of money.
I don't even have an hourly rate. I mean, the last time I charged anybody hourly, it was $1,500 an hour, and I haven't done that in, I don't know, it's close to probably maybe a decade. I don't know. It's really been a long time. Again, it comes down to figuring out what the problem is you solve, what the value of that problem is. And, and if it's a big enough problem, there's a big market for it. Right. And so you go out there, and the people that want the problem solved will write the check.
Yep.
And everybody else will, try to talk you into doing it for free, or they'll say, well, this is going to be, why don't we partner up? I'm not looking for business partners. I'm looking for clients. Right. And then I want friends. I want my client relationship to become one of friendship, because the relationship doesn't end with them hiring you. That's where it starts.
Right.
So yeah, I don't even have an hourly fee.
Yeah, it's like with the IBM thing. We give them the proposal. It didn't say we're charging this per hour and this is how many hours we're going to bill you for. It was more like, here's the problems we're going to solve, and it's going to be $2 million.
Yeah, and if the business case makes sense, for a lot of my clients, in my experience, and the clients I work with, the problems we solve are worth millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes maybe they're only worth $1 million a year. I say only.
Right.
But if that's going to persist for 3, 4, 5, 7 years, well, that's a $5 to $7 million upside. I'm asking $50,000. I mean, this is just good math. Let's do it.
Right.
And so I don't, that's just a non-issue. When you're doubling a company or tripling a company, and you can actually do that in 30, 60, or 90 days, depending on the situation. I mean, it's just math, and that's business is just math, so it's really not that complicated.
Yeah. So we talked about, okay, raise your prices during the recession. It's really not about that. It's about just find problems you can solve and solve them for people.
Solve bigger problems. And some of it too is confidence. Yeah. Right. I think the biggest reason people don't raise their prices has everything to do with their own money issues. I will say that if you want to charge more, then you should be willing to pay more. And what I mean by that is, if you need help, invest to get it. Anybody listening to this, because I know the people that follow you, they're all brilliant individuals. They're all intelligent. They're all smart. They could figure anything out on their own. I mean, let's face it, you can Google anything, right? It's time. So is it going to take you 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, or 6 years to figure it out on your own? Or are you going to write the check to have somebody show you the shortcut? Right. And that's what I've done. I mean, I've just spent, well, let's just say I can buy houses in California with the money I have spent, in my education. Yeah. Both of us have, and the groups I belong to, whether it was a mastermind, or just hiring a consultant, or the very first mentor I ever hired, it was $7,500. And this was like 20 years ago, $7,500 was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And and of course my wife trusted me, and we're still together. But it was a big ask, right? And they knew the value of their solution, and it was worth every penny. Right. And I've just been happy to do that kind of investment over and over and bigger every year. I mean, I spent a lot of money. A very significant portion of my income is spent on continuous education.
Yeah. So you just connect with the right people. You pick up one little nugget at 10 times the investment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's what the issue is. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. Right. And so we used to always teach with, back at One Coach, we talk to business owners about building your business is a little bit like baking a cake, right? You have to have the right ingredients. Yeah. But you also got to do it in the right order. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you do stuff out of order, you may end up with, who knows what. And I can tell you, it could be bad. But so if you don't know the recipe, you got to find the solution.
Right. Have an expert show you how to do it at least once, right? Or do it for you, which is even better.
Well, that is even better. I mean, you got to figure out how you learn and how you learn best and what motivates you and what drives you. Let's face it, there are so many quote unquote gurus out there. One of the things that bothers me the most, especially in the coaching world, and coaching's kind of gotten a bad name for a lot of reasons. You might see a life coach who's 19 years old. I mean, right. Yeah, they haven't lived enough life to be a life coach. I'm sorry, not to be ageist or anything, but I just have a problem with that. I'm still learning, and I'm a grandfather, right? And I'm still making mistakes every day. So, but same thing as business coaches. You've got these companies out there that'll just sell somebody on the idea that they can be a business coach because we're going to teach you everything you need to know. Right. Well, if you haven't been responsible for signing the check to pay the employee, I'm really not sure that you fit that business coach criteria, So I don't know. So I think that, yes, you want to find the expert, but you really do want to make sure that expert's actually done what you want to do. Right. And so that oftentimes takes a little bit of work, because some of them out there are really, really good at marketing, and not necessarily have they ever actually done anything they say that they're capable of doing.
Right. So, yeah. Well, this has been great. It's just so many ideas as usual.
Yeah, we can talk about anything.
Like the sign behind you there. Be fearless. Put it out there.
Yeah, you know what? Practice. So it's funny. I used to trade commodities a long time ago, and realized that I didn't actually. We could spend an hour talking about that. I just realized I didn't have enough money to really be in the commodities market at that time. All that being said, as I was studying it and looking at it, some of the best salespeople in the world are brokers. Best is a euphemism, and it's because they tend to be pretty high pressure, which I don't like at all. All that being said, because they're working with big, large sums of money, one of the things stockbrokers and commodities brokers and these giant commercial loan officers do is they teach them to practice saying big numbers. Yeah. Right? Because it's not comfortable, So if you've never asked for $50,000, you need to get comfortable asking for $50,000 before you don't practice. You don't practice with prospects. So, right. So stand in front of the mirror and say big numbers: $59,875, $1,673,000, just whatever. I mean, it just needs to roll off of your tongue, no differently than asking for a glass of water. Right.
Yeah. So it comes confident in saying that, they're going to say, okay, great. You've been here, done that before.
Yeah. And there's a process to it. I mean, that's why we created the whole idea behind the stranger to client roadmap. You want to build, and everybody's probably heard, and if they haven't heard, know, like, and trust is critical, right? When you're bringing somebody from stranger to client, along the way, you have to establish your authority. They have to see you the right way, so that they trust you and they want to do business with you. And everybody, I don't care what I do. It doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter whether you're an insurance agent, a realtor, you sell cars, you sell homes, you're a loan officer. People have to trust you at some level to do business with you. Right. And so that process also is mapped out. And that's what we did with the stranger to client.
So you have a little gift for us you're going to share, right?
I do. We have a roadmap that lays out all the steps so that you can take somebody from stranger to client. And we also included one of the cheat sheets for the whole idea of understanding the value of what you do and what you're selling. And, and it's not coaching or consulting. It's not even if you sell products, right? If you're a commercial, if you're in e-commerce, it's not even the product. Again, people buy what they buy for the end result. And if you can figure that out and reverse engineer from there, you'd be much more successful.
Yeah. Your closing rate will skyrocket.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the URL to get this?
So we're going to send everybody to a2zclient.com/S as in Sierra, the number 2, and then C as in Charlie. So the A to Z is the letter A, the word 2, T-O, the letter Z as in zebra.
And I'll put it in the show notes and the comments too.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. I realized as I started doing some of these conversations with people, I was like, I could not have picked a more challenging URL to speak, right? Because it could be anything. And we own A, the number 2, but that's not the one you want to go to. Right. We own it, but so it's A. And we've redirected it to the other one because as soon as we bought it and started branding on it, it's like, this is a bad idea. I like the idea though, because we really want to cover everything from A to Z when it comes to clients. And that's where it came from. That's what it stems from. So it's a2zclient.com/S, the number 2, and then C as in Charlie.
And it could be right below you to click on.
Yes. Make it easy that way. That's cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time, Mike. This has been great.
Absolutely. I have a great time. Thanks, Ted.
We'll talk to you soon.